A car sits perfectly still in a sterile laboratory, its tires spinning seamlessly on metallic rollers. The exhaust readings are immaculate. Those pristine laboratory tests hid a $30 billion scam, a deception that pumped toxic gas into the atmosphere and nearly dismantled a global automotive titan. Before the crisis, Volkswagen represented the global standard for engineering, moving over 10 million vehicles a year through a planet-spanning portfolio of brands. To maintain that growth, they needed to dominate the United States. But American emission standards, especially those enforced by the EPA and California regulators, were incredibly strict. Their answer was the clean diesel engine. It was marketed to everyday drivers as a miracle of engineering, offering rapid sports car torque, hybrid fuel efficiency, and zero environmental guilt. The physical reality of engine design tells a different story. Neutralizing toxic nitrogen oxide, or NOx, requires a bulky, expensive chemical system that injects urea into the exhaust. Installing those tanks across millions of compact passenger cars would destroy trunk space and erase profit margins. Faced with an impossible choice between performance, cost, and legal compliance, Volkswagen moved the battle from hardware to software, using code to bypass the physical constraints of chemistry. In 2014, a small team of researchers at West Virginia University set out on a road trip. They weren't looking for a scandal. They simply wanted to study and validate Volkswagen's highly praised diesel technology. They strapped a portable emissions measurement system, a bulky array of sensors and hoses, directly to the exhaust pipe of a Volkswagen and drove it from Los Angeles to Seattle. This split-screen chart illustrates the discrepancy. The flat line represents pristine lab compliance. The chaotic, spiking red line tracks actual highway exhaust. The logs defied logic. The researchers initially questioned their tools, recalibrating sensors repeatedly, rather than suspecting massive corporate fraud. After recalibrating their sensors, the forensic evidence confirmed the mechanical hardware was working exactly as intended, proving the engine's own software was generating the deception. They identified a defeat device, which took the form of an invisible digital switch buried deep within millions of lines of engine management firmware. The researchers had uncovered a deliberate, highly sophisticated mechanism that enabled the vehicle to recognize when it was being watched. The computer tracked highly specific telemetry, the exact rotational speed, the barometric pressure, and the precise steering wheel angle. During an official emissions test, the vehicle sits stationary. The wheels spin, but the steering wheel stays perfectly dead center. When the algorithm detected this exact combination, it triggered a dyno mode, choking the engine's performance to guarantee pristine exhaust output. But the moment the steering wheel turned on a real road, the car dropped its constraints. The software seamlessly bypassed the emission controls, prioritizing consumer power and fuel efficiency while dumping toxic gases into the air. When the initial research reached regulators, Volkswagen spent over a year stonewalling the EPA, falsely blaming the high emissions on vague technical glitches. The stalling only ended when the EPA played its final card, threatening to ban Volkswagen's entire 2016 diesel fleet. Cornered and unable to sell their new cars, the company finally confessed in September 2015. The admission exposed a terrifying vulnerability in modern regulation. A corporation had successfully used code to mimic legal compliance in a controlled setting while operating a toxic hazard in the real world. The scale of that hazard was immense. In everyday driving, these clean diesels were emitting nitrogen oxides at levels up to 40 times the legal federal threshold. NOx is a severe pollutant linked directly to respiratory illness. A study from MIT estimated that the excess emissions from these vehicles contributed to 60 premature deaths across the United States alone. Consumers who specifically bought these cars to protect the environment realized they were driving toxic hazards. The deception ignited a crisis of trust that threw the used car market into chaos. The company initially tried to blame a few rogue engineers, but the U.S. Department of Justice alleged the scheme went all the way to the top. CEO Martin Winterkorn was forced to resign and ultimately faced criminal indictment. An international dragnet followed. Executives and engineers were hit with fraud charges, leading to arrests, extraditions, and a 7-year prison sentence for a top U.S. executive. This bar chart visualizes the financial reckoning. Between massive vehicle buyback programs, environmental mitigation, and criminal fines, the penalty skyrocketed until it hit a staggering $30 billion. Dieselgate was a terrifying demonstration of how invisible software can quietly manipulate physical outcomes. It proved that an empire built on a decade of deception only takes one road trip to